Everyone, we're starting in just 1 minute. We're just about to start. Hi everybody, welcome. So happy to have you here today. My name is Anthony Vullen. I am the owner of The Collective Realty, and today our topic is all about home sellers. With prices at an all-time high, this may be the right time for some of you to consider selling property. We have a packed agenda today, and our main goal at The Collective, our mission, is to protect your wealth and to help you build and increase your wealth. So Home Seller Seminar is really dear to our heart. It's really important because this is a big opportunity to make sure that we're able to help and advise you to protect your wealth and to help you to build on that. So we're not just talking about selling property, but we're also going to talk about, is it possible for you to take money out of the home, the equity that you already have, and purchase your next property. We'll talk about preparing your home and staging, and we have a really great agent panel set up for that. We also have a special guest coming on towards the end talking about capital gains. As you know, when you sell a property, we have huge advantages with capital gains, and there's even more strategies that we're going to introduce to you today. So I'm excited to be here, and with that being said, welcome. You can find us at The Collective Realty. This is being recorded for our YouTube page, so you're welcome to search The Collective Realty and find us there. But let me see if I can unpin myself for a minute and maybe, where am I don't know. Remove spotlight. Here we go. Sorry about that. Just wanted to see everyone there. You can use the whole view and check out the gallery view who's here today. Feel free to ask any questions at any time. Just raise your hand or type it into the chat function, and we'll be sure to keep checking that out and update you on and the answers that you have to your questions. We want this to be interactive. So to start, like I said, you know, when you're thinking about selling a home, what I always ask my clients is it possible? Is there any way that it's possible that you can keep your home and purchase that next property that you're looking to do? And you know, a lot of times people think, oh, I don't know, I don't think so. Well, I brought in two of my favorite lenders who are going to talk to us about a couple strategies on how some people do that. They're going to talk about cash out refis and HELOCs and talk about some strategies of how that might work. So I'm going to bring on to my panel here first, Marty Carey with Artstone Financial. Welcome, Marty.
Everyone.
And I'm also going to be bringing on Miss Natalie Salins from Movement Mortgage. These two are amazing lenders. They're so awesome. And yeah, so why don't you guys talk to us for a minute about how some people are able to purchase a property without having to sell the one that they're living in? Because most people don't realize that this could be an option for them.
Sure.
Well, I mean, go ahead.
You go ahead, honey. Go for it.
I mean, so one of the things, I mean, one of the basic things people forget is going to be if you are it depends on if you're low on down payment money or if you're not able to qualify because you can't service both mortgage payments. Those are the two main obstacles people would have in buying a home before they sell their home. So what as lenders we do is we look at to see if the person has the capacity to maintain their home that they're currently living in and the mortgage that's associated with it. If it's paid off, that's a different story. And then if they could afford to buy another property as well and maintain both payments while, you know, with their income. So if that's not an issue, obviously there's going to be down payment that's associated with the new purchase as well. It won't be 100% financing. So in order to do that, you know, we have to consider things like, you know, most people forget, you know, there's family members that are always involved and they might be willing to give you a gift or a temporary, some sort of like a funds that you could actually get from them to be able to go ahead and put down payment on your new purchase. That's one thing that I would generally consider asking, because if you don't ask your family members, they might not know that you actually need the funds to put down on your new purchase. But aside from that, I mean, you know, a lot of people with the accelerated values that's going on in the homes currently, you know, they have a ton of equity in their homes. So they have to tap into that somehow, whether it's, you know, refinancing and doing a cash out transaction or doing a home equity line of credit. You know, there's various different loan programs. I think I noticed on your agenda, there's other types of programs that we'll talk about later that would allow you to be able to purchase a home without having to sell your current existing home.
Yeah, because the goal is, I mean, if you truly want to build wealth in this country, you have to own as much real estate as possible, really. It's the number one way that people are building wealth. So if there's a way for you to keep your home, that would be amazing. With rent prices so high, especially in Los Angeles, a lot of times the rent will be able to cover what your mortgage is. The question is, can you buy that new home? Do you have enough down payment saved? Or, you know, what is the strategy? Because if you're able to cover your mortgage or even more with your rental payment that the market demands at that moment, I think it's worth exploring keeping that property and moving on to the next one by renting it out. So how do you get money out of the property, Natalie? Like, there's a couple common ways, you know, that people are doing that. How do people do that?
Absolutely. So most of the time, depending on how much money they need, a very inexpensive way is to get a HELOC. HELOCs are normally free to obtain. They also work like credit cards, so you don't have to pay on them until you actually draw money from them, which is a nice option, because if you are drawing something like $300,000 or that's what you plan to use on the next property, it's nice that you're not making payments on that $300,000 if you're not even in a property that you're looking at purchasing yet, you know? So you only pay on it when you actually have a balance and need to draw money from it. So a lot of the times I like to get people set up and started with a HELOC. So they own this property, they want to start looking at other properties. Great, you have equity in this property. Let's just get you a HELOC so it sits open and available for you for when you need it. If it sits at zero, again, you don't pay on it. It's just like an open credit line. It's like a credit card. So that's normally my favorite thing. And we get them started right away.
Okay, and you don't pay until you use it. So might as well get it set up and see if you use that money to help you use it for the down payment on your next house.
Exactly. Let it sit at 0. Great. It just is open and ready for you when you need it.
Yeah, I mean, because for example, the property that I own, I purchased it about a little over 10 years ago, and I bought it, back when you could buy with like 0 down, and I've slowly been paying it off. But the point that I'm at now, and where values are and rents are at now, and what my mortgage is now, because I just refied, I could get twice as much in rent as what my actual mortgage payment is. So, for me to be able to buy something down the road without having to sell is a real possibility. It's just about that down payment. So I can take some money out, add a little bit more payment to my condo, because the rent that I'm getting will cover that additional loan that we're adding onto that, take the cash out and buy a new house. And now someone else is paying my equity, building up my equity in my condo, and I'm able to buy a house and build equity there. Now I'm building equity twice as fast. So it's something to think about. Refis are super popular now, and that's what brought this up and why I wanted to talk about this today. But also cash out refis are another option, right, Marty?
Yeah, you could
What's the difference
definitely do.
between that and what Natalie recommended?
So home equity line of credit is going to be an adjustable interest rate, and it could go very up and down. And it's usually utilized for a short period of time, which is very appropriate with a transaction such as buying a home while you're selling your home. Low cost way of doing it. It's very appropriate. But if the goal is to hold on to it for a longer period of time and rent it out, you want to securitize that money in a longer fixed period of time. And when you do a cash out transaction, you're basically securing that cash out portion of the funds as another 30-year fixed program, or whatever it may be. If you want to do a 15-year or 10-year, whatever it may be, my advice is always going to be to go with a 30-year program and just have this low interest rates. We've never seen interest rates this low before. And why not monetize on it? Because down the line, you can take that 2.875, 3.5% interest rate, whatever it may be that you're getting, and you could probably get a higher return on that money on the new purchase, based on the fact that we've seen in the last few years values have increased much faster, and the return has been much bigger than the money that you'd be borrowing at the cost of 3.5% currently. The other thing is that to keep an eye out on programs. Programs are always changing, and in a market like this, everybody's feeling optimistic. Lenders, banks, everybody's feeling optimistic coming out of COVID, and we're seeing positive outcomes and positive future. And so programs are getting a little looser. And so traditionally, when you are not able to, when you have to include both payments to qualify the person, now there's programs that are a little looser that would say, if you list the home with the collective, or whoever it is you're listing it with, but preferably the collective that you're listing the home with, we can exclude that payment from your obligations on a monthly basis. So that just gives you an idea of that there's optimism, and when there's optimism, our guidelines get a little looser, obviously. So
Great. Any other points or tips you might have for anyone who's thinking of selling but wanting to hold on if they can? I mean, the longer you hold on to real estate, the more equity you're building, the more wealth you're building. So that's always the goal. Any other last minute tips?
For me, I would say, there's never a bad time to buy a property. It's always good. It's anytime I've bought a property, it's always exceeded. Even if you buy it at the height, it goes down, it goes up over the long term. I think it's a great idea what you guys are doing. And I love the idea that you guys are creating homeownership or teaching everybody about homeownership. I think it's a great tool. I mean, I tell my friends and family all the time, how do you save $500,000, $600,000, $700,000? You really don't. That's how you make money off of real estate.
Yeah, thanks, Marty. So we're at a really unique time right now where this topic is, I think, relevant to a lot of people because home prices are at an all-time high, right? So we all know that's a good time to sell when they're at an all-time high. And interest rates are at an all-time low. So why not take advantage of both best of both worlds and do that? But it's also possible, to possibly keep your property, keep renting it out, and then purchase a new property. So talk to your realtor, talk to your lender, especially about if you could possibly make that happen for you, keeping your home while buying a new home and renting out the one you currently have. At least do yourself the favor and explore that option. So next I want to bring on Zoe, who is an amazing title rep. We've known each other for since 20 years almost, since I got my license, and we've been working together. She is amazing. I'm going to leave Marty and Natalie, let's see. No, I'm just going to talk to Zoe for a minute. So,
Hi.
hi. No, Zoe, why don't you introduce yourself? And I'm going to pull up a screen, a net sheet, because I want people to know if they're thinking of selling, what are the costs associated with selling? So let's review that net sheet together and talk about what that's going to be like.
Sure. So again, my name is Zoe Schulman, and I have been selling title insurance for a very long time. I'm with WFG National Title Company. They've been in business for 10 years. They're the 6th largest underwriter in the country. And I have experience with residential, commercial, loans, sales, all of the above. And there are definitely fees when you're selling your property that you need to be aware of. So we're going to pull up this net sheet right now.
Do you see it on the screen?
Yeah, I see it.
All right.
So this is a sale of $670,000, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, this is a condo that I just listed.
Okay.
And the seller said, well, if I list it, how much, besides commission, which is typically 6%,
Right.
how much do I have to pay for title and escrow, and what are my other costs, involved? So yeah, let's talk about this.
Yeah, the first cost is property taxes. Depending upon what time of year it is, it's usually prorated so that you pay a portion and the new buyer pays a portion, depending upon when it's due. Not currently, property taxes are due and payable before April 10th. I think it's the 12th this year. So the second half of property taxes are due, and here you have it at $862.62. So that would be for the seller. Then one of the things that I don't know if everybody understands is that the seller pays for the title policy for the new owner. They actually pay that fee. The new buyer does not pay for it. And what that title policy provides to the new buyer is that they'll own the property free and clear of any liens and judgments that would adversely affect them. So that fee on a $670,000 sale is $1,821. Then there's a bunch of different fees from the county. There is county transfer tax. There is documentary transfer tax, which I'm looking for here. Oh, that's the county transfer tax. Some cities also have additional taxes. So depending upon where the property is located, you'll have transfer tax that you pay to the county and sometimes to the city. There is, the title company charges a sub-escrow fee, which is shared between the buyer and the seller. It's $125. So here you have it at $62.50. Then there's a wire fee because money is wired in and out. And with sometimes messengers are used to bring the documents to title so that we can record them. So that's an approximate fee of $50. Again, there's an escrow fee. The escrow officer is the third party, the disinterested party who represents the buyer and the seller and coordinates everything between them and the title company. And then the title company records the documents and disperses funds. So we're all a team, we're all a partnership together, and there are fees involved. So here you've got an escrow fee of $15.90, a processing fee of $225, again, a wire fee, an overnight fee, a messenger fee, an administration fee. Sometimes those fees are not used, but they always have to put it in an estimated net sheet so that you're covered and all of a sudden you don't get a surprise. I didn't think I was going to be charged for this. Documents have to be notarized. So there's a notary fee. Let me ask you this, Anthony, I'm not sure. Does the seller pay for the homeowner's warranty? Is that generally?
Yeah, so I guess these next few questions I can talk about briefly. So pest inspection, that's, sometimes there's termite inspections that happen that a buyer will request that you pay for that inspection. And that's typically an average inspection cost. This is something that's negotiable, but it's definitely something that may come up. Natural hazard report fee, that's going to let our buyers know if the property that you're selling them is in an earthquake zone, a fire zone, a flood zone, so they know if they have to get possibly additional insurance or so on. This is something the seller pays for to disclose that information. It's a little over $100. A home warranty, absolutely traditional for a seller to pay for a home warranty. It's not a mandatory, but it's highly, highly recommended. I always recommend my sellers to offer a home warranty, but again, it's going to be written in the contract. So if you have multiple offers, it's possibly something that that the buyer may end up paying for, but traditionally the seller pays for it, and it'll cover any of your systems that break down the first year. So if your air conditioning has a problem, if there's a slight plumbing leak, if there's a refrigerator that breaks, or dishwasher, or garbage disposal, sometimes they even cover, small roof leaks. So all the policies are different, but for a condo, it's average around $500. And that's there. If you have air conditioning or a pool, the home warranty cost may be a little bit more. Retrofitting there's always some type of fee for that. $150 for a condo, maybe $350 for a home. But in LA, we have to make sure that all the toilets are low flow or they need to be replaced before you sell the home. We also want to make sure the water heater is braced properly, that there's smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors in all the right spots, and somebody goes out there and certifies that yes, everything is done correctly. So there's definitely a cost to that. And then this is a condo that we're selling. So there's a transfer fee that the management company charges, a document fee, a move-in, move-out fee. Those are all kind of estimates for a condo. So overall, I would say average, count on a little over 1% typically is what closing costs would be for a seller. Do you agree, Zoe?
I agree. It's usually about 1%. Yes.
Yeah. So this is a $670,000 condo. It's coming out to be about $7,000 in closing costs. I think some of these fees are not going to be needed. They might be a little different. So it'll probably come really close to about 1%. So count on the 1%. Plus the commission of about 6%, and those are your closing costs. That's what you need to anticipate. All right.
If you want me to mention, I'm not sure that at my title company, I have some discounts available.
Yes.
I have some discounts available for sellers. If you're over 55, I have a 25% discount for the seller's fee. If you are a veteran, same thing. And I also have a first-time home buyer's discount, which I just happened to have a condo that just went into escrow, very inexpensive. I couldn't believe how little it was in the Valley. And it's a first-time home buyer. And I was able to offer them a discount. And the title fee wasn't that much to begin with. It was $450, but it brought it down to $339. So, every penny that you can save helps. So we're there to help you save money so you have a larger amount of proceeds.
Absolutely. Yeah, and Zoe is a really, really great resource for a lot of things that come up when you're selling a property. I mean, as you know, with title, there could be a lien on your property that you think maybe should have been removed, or what are some other things that sellers discover when they're about to sell their house?
They discover encroachments, where a neighbor's fence is encroaching on their property, or their property is encroaching on the neighbors. And when there's a loan, that can create a problem. The major things that come up usually are tax liens. Sometimes they are not your buyers or sellers if they have a common name. So we check it to make sure whether or not it's theirs. Often there's spousal support issues where someone hasn't been paying their child support, and that comes up. If they own a business, sometimes there's business fees that come up. There's lawsuits. There's all sorts of things, but I'd say the most common are tax liens, and usually that can be resolved. But things do show, and that's why we're here. And I always review the title reports to make sure there's no red flags, and if there are, to let you know early so they can be addressed.
Yeah, as soon as we take the listings, always like, Anthony, do you need a prelim report? We need to figure out. I'm like, yes, order it. And within a couple days, the report comes back after they do all their investigations and we review it. And if there's anything that is of concern, we'll bring it up to the seller so it can be addressed right away to make sure it's not a mistake, or if it is something that's real that they know. You know, I had a few times where there was a tax lien on a property and the seller freaked out and they said, I just don't have the money. That's why I haven't paid it. What do I do? I said, well, you don't have to pay it before we close escrow. The money can come out of the proceeds to pay that lien. So don't worry, we can still sell your property. You can still sleep at night and rest. You know, you're going to be netting about $100,000 from this property and your tax lien is $12,000. You know, we will deduct it at the end. So it's, yeah, calms people down a lot.
One of the things in Los Angeles that's very common, there are many, many common names.
Yeah.
So very often a lien will show up against like, I don't know, Mario Rodriguez, and you'll tell your seller and they go, that's not me. So we ask for their social security number and we run that against that lien. And if it's not them, we remove it. And that's been like super, super common in the last couple of years, that liens show up against people and it's not theirs. So when we ask, sometimes, you know, we ask for personal information, people don't like to give it. It's really for their protection.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you have a team working for you when you're selling your house. When you hire a realtor, we're going to be doing all these things behind the scenes, looking to make sure that you're able to sell a house, that you're prepared to sell it properly. Not all realtors or all companies are going to be doing this service. So be careful with the type of company that you hire. You want to make sure you have a full service realtor who's looking at your title, who's preparing you for anything that could come up going down the road. So thank you, Zoe.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
You're the best. We love you. So yeah, it matters which agent you choose to sell your home. It doesn't matter what type of market it is. If it's a seller's market or a buyer's market, it still really, really matters. And we see from certain types of brokers or agents, the price could really vary, you know, over 5%, sometimes even more. There was a company that was working last year that they're not in business anymore, that their properties were selling on, I did a study in one neighborhood, an average of 10% less than what a normal full-time, full-service brokerage was selling properties for in that area. That's a huge, huge difference. Maybe they were offering less commission, so their service was different. I don't know the full story, but it absolutely happens. So, you know, commission is one thing, but the amount of money that you're going to net at the end of the day is the most important thing to you. And that's truly, truly what a realtor's goal is. So, choosing the agent that you do matters, that you decide to list with. And I'm going to bring on a couple agents now. Miss Karen Newmy, welcome. Where's my other guys? Oh, we have Cindy Lee. Welcome, Cindy, who just closed a deal today, and I have a check here for you. Congratulations. We always like that. Another happy, satisfied client. And our most successful agent in our office and director of our commercial division, Will Tiao, is here as well. So welcome, everybody. Super happy to have you guys. And we're going to talk now about kind of the process of getting the home prepared to sell, pricing strategies, marketing. You know, COVID is a big issue right now, all of these things. So I'll guide you through some questions and let's kind of review that process. After that, I'm going to talk a little bit about negotiations and repairs. And then we have another speaker to end out our session today who's going to talk to us about capital gains and strategies to maximize your savings for capital gains. So let's get into the process of actually selling your home. You've decided that, yes, you're ready to sell your property. You know, the first thing that sellers always ask realtors is, what can we do to our property to maximize the value? Should I paint? Should I do this? Should I fix the kitchen? Should I stage? All of those different things. So I wanted to start with staging, right? So if you happen to have a property where you're able to move out and it's vacant, staging is a cost. You got to pay it up front. Sometimes the realtor helps you pay it up front. Sometimes you can pay at the end of the deal. Regardless of what it is, staging absolutely works. Will has a property that he's listing right now that was, talk to us about that and tell us your opinion about staging with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, everybody. I see some folks on here. Kara, Shane, Eggy, Jean, Chen, Ellen Chu. I just want to say hello to you guys. Yeah, staging is, I think, a very critical aspect. I have found that a lot of buyers don't have a lot of imagination, sadly. And so I think that being able to see what you can do with the space really makes a huge, huge difference. I currently have listed a couple of townhomes in the West Hollywood area, and we had them staged, and just the difference between the before and after pictures really, I think, is the reason why we got over asking on both the units that we listed. Multiple offers. It's just, you know, we even had people asking us if they could buy the furniture. So I always think that a good staging company definitely gives returns, and you're absolutely right, Anthony, that it is an upfront cost. So a lot of buyers, a lot of sellers are a little hesitant about it, and understandably so, because it is money upfront. But we have found that the returns on it have, you know, if it's done right and tastefully and correctly, you know, I feel can really definitely, you know, you can get your money back.
You absolutely get your money back. I'm going to show you briefly just a couple of slides of a condo that I had that was staged, and let's see. They're just real simple photos, but you can get an idea, right, of the difference of the owner thought the property was perfect and great condition, and it's very clean, right? It's not cluttered like some properties that we walk into, but you could see the difference of just putting in an appropriate size couch, a rug, a little bit of color, some trees, different things really, really opened up this room. Here's the dining room area. There was a table there so people can see the size, but adding the artwork and really finishing it up and putting an appropriate size table and little accessories makes a big difference. Here's a bedroom example. You know, this old kind of clunky furniture with a TV in the room and a bed that's, you know, not properly made compared to moving the bed on the other side, you know, really doing some great final touches. It creates an emotion. When people walked into this room, they just were like, oh my God, this room, it just feels so good. You know, people are buying your home based off of emotion. So you may live like the top picture, which is fine. Most of us do, right? We don't live like the bottom picture. You know, if you do, we should get married. No, I'm already engaged to an amazing guy. But the bottom picture, most of us don't live like that every day, right? So when a realtor gives you ideas of what they want your property to look like and how it should be staged, don't take it personally. It's just to create an emotion of looking like a true model home. And you can see the difference in this, where one is like, okay, this is their guest bedroom or a kid's room or whatever it is, but it's just not quite the same. Here's another room, a bedroom that it looks beautiful, looks nice. They had nice furniture. But you know, taking it out and staging it and putting some accessories in there and a little bit of color, it really creates a different type of feel. So keep staging in mind. Karen is has amazing design background, and let me get off my screen share. What are some of your thoughts and your experience of stuff? Because you don't always have to fully stage a home. You can work with a home that, you know, as it is at that moment. What are some things that you typically will recommend to your clients?
So what I was going to say is there's a few ways of, can you hear me?
Yep.
Can you hear me? Yeah. There's a few ways of going about it. There's staging, where you get a company, and to add to what Will said, some companies now, because of the problems financially people were having, will allow you to pay out of escrow. So you really have to check on the company and see if it's, you know, you like what they do. But that is an option. The other way is that's hiring a company. The other way is virtual staging. If you have an empty property, virtual staging, which actually is cheaper than staging because you usually pay them by the photographs. And depending how many rooms you want to stage, It can be anywhere from $30 to $60, depending on how custom it is. So that's another opportunity. When I say custom, you can tell them what you want in the room, et cetera. And lastly, a lot of times you will find a home where it's not bad. I mean, they have they have good structure, and they have a bed, and they have a cabinet, and it's nice looking. It might even be antiques or whatever, and you can add to it, I guess is what I'm saying, is that you can, and I've done that. I've helped, even if it you know, spur of the moment, I've helped somebody run to Target and get pillows and get a small rug, and, you know, because they were on a very limited budget, but it can be done. I'm saying that it doesn't always have to be staged. Staging, of course, is the best because you get the best looking, you know, you're getting designers doing it, but it isn't always the way. And we know the selling price goes up, as Will said, the amount of time on the online, you know, to sell it is much shorter. And another thing is it attracts people online. When your pictures are really good, your place looks that they could live in it, that they could see a life in it. They just keep looking at those pictures and they want to come see it. So,
yeah, photographs are really important, right? Karen, you always seem to find the best photographers. Mm-hmm. And lighting and the style you can't just have a realtor, you know, who's going to come in. So many times I see them take pictures on their own camera and do it, or on their phone, which it's great quality, but it's not the same. It takes a lot of work and practice to become an amazing real estate photographer. And Karen and I, we like architectural style photography, right?
Right, rather than necessarily real estate, because they have a understanding of the space. It's a little bit different. But one last thing I just wanted to say is you might tell your buyer, your seller, to go online. There are things, I found this, I don't know if you can't read it probably, but this was a staging company that's in Chicago. And what they did is they have all the things that you can do in every room that you can tell your buyer in advance if it's not being fully staged, how to declutter, what to take off the counters, what to take off the bedroom, the kitchen, etc., to at least get it started. And I think that kind of reinforces that you're not just making this up, that this is a really important part of doing that process. And lastly, and you all probably, other people, Cindy and Will, can, you know, talk about the landscaping. It's not just staging. If they walk up to a house and it looks like, oh my God, the dirt's all over the place and the plants are all dead and holes by the moles or gophers are in the yard, that's one of the first things you should get them to do if they can do nothing else. So you guys can, you know, talk about that more.
Absolutely. Curb appeal is really essential. I mean, I think in my experience, most of the time, if it's vacant, or possibly can be, staging is number one. But otherwise, decluttering really is common with every seller. You know, taking some pictures off the wall, taking some books out of their bookcase, removing a couple pieces of furniture opens up a room a lot. And again, it's like, don't take anything personal. We're just trying to make it look as generic as possible so everyone can get a sense of that. If you have, you know, a red bathroom and you love it and it looks gorgeous, it might not be the most, not everyone may like it, right? You might not attract the most amount of people because of that. And I hear buyers look through the MLS and say, oh, are you taking me to a house with a red bathroom? I'm like, yes. It's like, oh, that's the worst bathroom. Like, it's red paint. You can paint over that in one day with any color you want. But people don't always see that. So if you have bright colored rooms or different colors that you really love, I always recommend a paint job. Do something neutral. Right now, some type of very, very light gray with white doors, white paneling, that's done, you know, the right way, makes it the most generic and the most appealing to the most amount of people. You might hate it, but it's not about you, it's about appealing to the most amount of people. So take your realtor's advice. The right color for the right room is really, really important. We don't want to get too crazy in detail. We want to make it generic, but we want it to be beautiful, and we want it to feel as open as possible. Other little tips too that I always recommend if someone's going to paint: replace all of your outlets and all of your switches, make them new. Because a lot of times we have some of them that just get dirty, or they're a little old, or it's white on the outside and then the plugs are like that old off-white color. If you do everything bright white and new when you paint, it makes the whole room feel better. So those are kind of probably the top two things that I would always recommend. Cindy, in your experience, go ahead, Karen, and then Cindy. Any other comments?
One last quick thing is I realize, I'm sorry, is when you talk about decluttering means it will make the place look bigger. That's the key. It's not just to make it neat. Anyway, I just wanted people to get the concept of why. Sorry, go ahead, Cindy, sorry.
Yeah, and another thing is I noticed a lot of home seller forgot about the smell of the home.
Okay.
So like I would say an hour or two before the showing, please do not like cook really strong smell food. And if you have pets, make sure you clean up the pet. And if you have dogs, you know, pick up the droppings in the front of backyard. That would actually improve the showing quite a bit. Like Will said, a lot of buyers cannot visualize this is a nice, clean, decluttered house. So make sure you do the job, you know, before the showing.
Perfect. So let's talk a minute about pricing strategies. Will, with your property that's on the market, you know, obviously sellers want to get the most amount of money, and we want them to get the most amount of money possible. But listing it over what market value is, I don't know. Does that work? What's your strategy?
Well, I always, you know, I always try to pull several comps for my sellers for them to look at what is selling on the market right now, right?
This estimate is not a comp, by the way.
Redfin estimates or whatever is online is definitely not. And sadly, I mean, you know, I think that so many people do depend on that, right? People think, oh, the Zestimate is what my house is worth, or whatever Redfin says, or Realtor.com says. And if you look at their, you know, the disclaimer on there, they can say like this estimate could be, you know, wildly off. In fact, I think probably the best example is the founder of Zillow listed his property and he got, I think, 30% below his own Zestimate.
Yeah, this is true.
That's a true story. So that gives you a sense of how good Zestimates are. But I always pull definitely like as many comps as I can find, so my seller can see where the market is. And then I always encourage them to consider listing, you know, a little bit less than that. And the reason being that I don't want to be the listing that's overpriced and then sits on the market, you know, because then people, like, if it doesn't sell, then what happens is, you know, people see it as a stale listing. And so instead of you end up going down in your price, which is never a good feeling.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, we have stats. There's so many stats that'll show the longer a home's on the market, the lower the actual value becomes. And because of what Will said, people view it as stale and it's not as fresh. There's not as much emotion attached to that home. We want to get that emotion there. We want to get at least 2 offers in so that there's that emotion to get people to bid over what that true value really is. And the lower you list your price compared to the market value, the more eyes you'll have on the property. So if you list it, the ideal number is about 10% below what the true market value is.
Exactly what I say, 10%.
Yeah, and everyone will be like, oh my gosh, this property, it's listed at that price for that area and that many bedrooms? That's crazy. Let's go see it. And then you get lots of viewings, lots of showings, lots of emotion, and people tend to outbid each other and you end up with the highest price, right?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that strategy more. And whenever I have not been able to convince a seller to do that, it's almost always worked against their, you know, against their interest.
Yeah, every seller strategy is let's price it high, and people can always offer lower. They'll just offer a lower price, but in our experience, they don't. It doesn't work like that.
They just don't offer.
Yeah.
offers.
Well, Zillow also was sued, and I don't know what happened to the case, but Anthony, you remember somebody was selling their house and they couldn't get the price that Zillow said. And they were very, very upset. It came out a lot lower. So we don't want to be in a position where somebody comes back at us and starts saying, you told me this, you know? So that's another point.
Yeah. Does anybody want to address kind of how anything you're doing right now during COVID to show properties? Because open houses are not allowed. So what are you guys doing to show properties? How are you making it work so everyone stays safe? Cindy or?
Oh, okay. Yes, there's no open houses, but I've seen a lot of pseudo open houses, which is like you need to basically make an appointment ahead of time, send in a property entry form, and then you line up outside the house. So I've seen a long line that took me about half an hour to get into the place. So this is the pseudo open houses that I've seen so far. It's pretty common, especially like Realtel was saying, if we price low, I always call it the teaser price. You tend to attract a long line of buyers in front of your house. To keep it safe, a lot of times you only technically allowed to have 3 viewers at the house at the same time. I know a lot of people don't follow that rules. After each showing, we're supposed to clean up the house. I've seen people using Lysol a lot, spray down the house, spray down the doorknobs. They'll encourage you not to touch anything in the house. And then they have hand sanitizers, or you can wear your gloves. So some sellers are more particular. They want you to wear gloves, masks, and booties.
Yeah, masks for sure are required. Booties and gloves are suggested, but not necessary unless you, the seller, require it. So yeah, everything's been staying pretty safe. Go ahead, Will.
I was going to say one thing we've been doing. So, and a lot of realtors are doing this now. They're doing kind of 3D, what they're calling 3D Matterport tours, where you'll have a photographer who will literally photograph the entire house or unit in a 360-degree angle, and then potential buyers can literally just go online and tour the house, you know, online. And a lot of people we've sold a few places now with the buyer never having stepped into the property. They are just using that Matterport, or and we also do a video as well, you know, so people can kind of see from a video as well as obviously the photos. And then I just had an agent who has a celebrity client in New Zealand, so she went in and FaceTimed her, you know, the whole property. So that has been happening more and more, you know. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely different ways that, you know, you can show a property virtually without ever having even to step onto a property, and people are making offers like that.
Yeah, it's surprising, but they are. Go ahead.
Sellers also are required now, which is for the benefit of, realtors, which for the benefit of the sellers, have to fill out a form that talks about the people that are going to view it, a COVID form. And I wasn't sure if Cindy said that or not. Yeah. I couldn't hear. You did mention it.
Yeah, the property entry form, the PEAT form.
PAD, right, okay.
Yeah, the virtual tour is definitely very important for buyers nowadays, especially for the millennials. They actually definitely want to see the layout, and they want to see, and you know, sometimes the 3D virtual tour can show some of the conditions of the property better than pictures.
Yeah.
And I would prefer that over a slideshow. I've seen agents using a slideshow that's not very effective. So video or the virtual tour.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, especially right now. Okay, next question is really important. I think this is one thing that stresses out sellers quite a bit, and a reason why some sellers decide not to sell, because they believe that they're like, how in the world am I going to be able to sell this property and buy another one concurrently? I want to be able to get into that new house while I'm still in this house moving, but I don't have the cash to buy the next house while I'm still in this house. I have to sell the house I'm in. Then I could buy the next house. So do I need to move to a hotel for a month? How does this work? And we have strategies. So does anybody want to address that?
Yeah, a leaseback it's called. And that is as we all know, that's a negotiating term in a sense that, and it's very open. Sellers shouldn't panic that, oh my God, I have to leave within the 30 days of escrow. That most buyers, especially in this market where there are not a lot of houses available, they don't want to lose the house. So if you need to stay in it an extra few months, or for whatever your reasons are, you can work that out, and you can either pay some rent, you can, the buyer can, you can work out how you want to do it with the buyer, but it's a negotiating factor.
So here's an example. I just listed my sister's house, and I wanted to make it as easy as possible for her. It's a seller's market, so we had a couple offers in. So like Karen said, it is part of the negotiation when you're accepting offers on how you're going to plan your future. So as you're accepting offers, this is another reason too why you really need to have an agent who understands and is looking out for your long-term goals. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck in a position that is very uncomfortable. So and these aren't common things that every agent is doing, but they should be. So what I did was, when we received the offers, I told the buyer, I said, we're willing to accept your offer. However, the seller is requesting that they're able to stay in the property for 45 days after escrow closes. They're willing to pay you $1,000. So it's not that much, but something, but they're willing to pay you $1,000 for that term, which will help you with your taxes. It'll help you with your HOA fees that you're paying. And that's about it. The rest of it, they're wanting to stay there so that they have the opportunity to close on their next property and to move. And they don't want to move in one day. They want to move over a week. So they need that time to make sure that everything happens. They don't want to rush. She's a teacher. She has 2 kids. This is a very stressful time for her. This is the only way you're going to get the house is you allow us to do this. And the buyer said, absolutely, no problem. We get it. She can stay there for 45 days. And if she's able to move out earlier, please let me know. I would love to move in as soon as possible. And she did. She ended up moving out at about 21 days after the close of escrow. But at least the seller had that opportunity to really take their time, move out when they were able to, and do it, with depositing their money from their sale to the down payment of their new home, have that close, and then move, and have no rush. So there's absolutely ways. Will.
I just had this exact same scenario. We had a client, Ken Dennis, who was on this call, worked with me on the sale. The seller, older gentleman, been in the house for decades, and was looking to move in with his son and their family, kind of downsize. And so they had negotiated on the sale, actually, I think a 3-month lease back. And we were able to use that time to then go find him another house, which we did. And we just closed on that, and they moved in. Now, one thing, I also, as some of you know, I do a lot of investment properties. So one thing to consider, okay, and I'm not saying people, any of your clients would do this, but it does happen, which is that right now some sellers are asking for a lease back, right? And then they'll do the lease back. And then when it comes time to go, they may not leave. and right now there are eviction moratoriums. Mm-hmm. So you cannot, basically, it can be difficult to get, it's not, now that's obviously illegal. You're breaching a contract, right? But if they claim COVID, right, it could take a second for you to get into the courts to do an eviction. So it's just something, on the buying side, you should be aware of. It can be negotiated, especially in the seller's market. It can be a very useful tool. But it's just
so that's why I brought on Marty and Natalie to kind of fill us in on another option. So say you're like, I don't want to deal with the leaseback. A buyer tells you that, and you're not able to do that. Everyone has heard of bridge loans, right? So say I'm just ready to move right now. Before I sell my house, I want to move. And bridge loans are opportunities for people to be able to move before they sell their home. So how does that work?
So
you're muted.
Go ahead, Marty. I guess Natalie's muted.
So, I mean, with bridge loans, you're basically, it's a very similar mechanism as we talked about earlier, and that's basically either we're cross-collateralizing both properties, we're taking both properties in consideration. And I'm just going to give you guys an example. For example, if the house is worth $1 million, and let's say the person owed only $200,000 on that house, and you guys are going to sell it, the person's going to make a lot of money, but they don't have the money readily available for their current purchase, as you said, Anthony. We'll go up to 70% of the value of the property. So $700,000 minus $200,000 that you owe. So we'll give you cash in hand, $500,000. So let's say you're buying another $1.5 million house on the other side. We'll give you 80% of that particular property as well. So 80% of 1.5 is going to be $1.2 million. So you'll only have to put down $300,000. So you could technically only borrow $300,000 in excess of your previous purchase, the current house that you're living in, and buy the other property without having to access like any other family money or whatever it may be, essentially. So your money is in your house, is could work for you to buy the other property.
So it's a great short-term loan that's an option to help you relieve a lot of stress if you have some equity in your home. So if you do, it's something to explore. Natalie, anything else to add on to that?
Not on bridge loans. That's just basically how they work. You pull money from the home you currently own to use it towards the new home that you want to buy. And they work in, the amounts that they're going to lend to you based on that.
It's an expensive loan.
I was just going to say that. I was just going to say it sometimes isn't, depending on what you want to do. If you know for sure you're selling it quickly, then it works and it's a great option, but they are expensive. Bridge loans are not cheap.
Yeah. And sometimes people are wanting to buy a home now and keep their home for the next 6 months for whatever reason. So that's really the only option for a lot of people, is to do that. So we just wanted to bring up these different options and let you know that there are ways to concurrently buy a property as you're selling yours that will, eliminate stress. So it's absolutely very possible. So before we get to our next speaker about capital gains, just wanted to wrap this session up about negotiating, and again, how important it is the agent that you choose, because negotiating the sales price is a huge factor of what type of wealth you're walking away with on this transaction, as well as the repairs. In Northern California, it's really common that home inspections are done before you list your property, and everyone sees everything that's part of your property before time. Anyone on this panel want to talk about negotiating repairs or prices, any kind of experience or stories that they might have? No? Okay. So again, the type of agent that you have really is going to help you be able to negotiate what your final cost is. The way that I negotiate is when multiple offers come in, I let everyone know what the highest offer is. My duty as a listing agent is to protect the seller. Some agents will never tell you what the other offers are. I'll treat everyone fairly and disclose that, because imagine a buyer coming in and they say, okay, I just offered $1 million and now the counter offer came back and they said, please submit your best and final offer, and we don't know what it is, right? And if you have no clue what it is, how do you know how high you would go? So say maybe they offered 1.5 and the actual highest offer was 1.1, and my client would have gone to 1.6. By disclosing that information, I find that I'm able to get the highest price in for my clients. And as realtors, we're absolutely allowed to do that if the sellers allow us to do that. So as a seller, I'd say give us permission to disclose all the offers to everyone. And I have a verbal negotiating day 2 or 3 sometimes before I send out a counteroffer. So it's not just about sending out a counteroffer and saying, submit us your best and final price. There's a lot of agents and a lot of companies who do that. And again, the agent you choose matters. So that is not the strategy that will get you the highest price. I promise you that. Having an agent that's going to negotiate behind the scenes verbally with agents over a day or two is absolutely going to help you discover what that highest price will be. So please, please keep that in mind. Okay, guys, thank you so much for being part of this panel. We're going to bring on our next speaker to talk about capital gains. So let me bring in Isaac. And Isaac, you know, before you start, I'm not sure if this is part of your conversation or not, but can you please remind everyone the benefits that we all have in selling a property with capital gains? What we have tax-free write-offs on when we sell a property. So Isaac, go ahead and take it away, and I'll remove the spotlight. Sorry. Okay, go ahead.
Got it. Thanks, Anthony. So hi, everyone. My name is Isaac Kim. I'm a financial advisor, and I help people reduce or eliminate capital gains tax. A lot of the time, I'm working with real estate or sellers of real estate. So if you're doing a 1031 exchange, you don't need to talk to me. But if you have a property and you're selling that property and you're going to have to pay taxes on it, that's when you want to come and see me, because I can help you reduce those taxes. Also, it sounds like there's some, real estate agents on this call. One of the reasons you want to know about capital gains tax, and just know a little bit, you don't have to know everything, but if you know a little bit, as an agent, it's really easy to differentiate yourself from other agents out there. There's no shortage of real estate agents in California, right? I'm sure you all agree with that. So if you need to differentiate yourself, just knowing a little bit about capital gains tax can help you do that. And, I've been brought in by both residential and commercial real estate sellers to talk about capital gains tax, to try and differentiate the agent and to try and get a listing. So I'm sure that all of you can relate to that. When you sell a property, you've held it for more than a year, you can, and I'm assuming, well, it's a little bit different for residential real estate than it is for commercial real estate. But when you hold a property for a while and you sell that for a gain, instead of paying regular income tax on the sale of that property, you get to use something called capital gains tax rates. And the capital gains tax rates are lower than the income tax rate. So I think the highest income tax rate right now is maybe 37% for federal, something like that. For, federal capital gains tax, the highest is 20%. So if you can go from 30%, 37 down to 20%, I mean, it's definitely worth doing that. I have several strategies that I offer out to help people reduce the capital gains tax. And which strategy it just depends on the situation when you're trying to figure out what's the right strategy.
But before you get into that, Isaac, remind people how much they're able to write off, right, when they sell a residential property.
Well, when they're selling off a residential property, I mean, you have
how
your
much
sales
tax-free,
price.
yeah.
So you have your sales price and then you have your basis in that property. And the difference is what you'll be taxed on. You can write off things like the real estate commissions that you're going to be paying, the basis that you have in the property, any upgrades that you've done on that property, if you've put on a new roof, things like that. All of that will increase your basis, which is another way of saying we can reduce the amount that will be subject to capital gains tax. So all the fees that you incur trying to sell that property, all the fees that are costs that you incur to upgrade that property, that can be taken as a tax write-off. Of course, you want to refer to your CPA about how you want to do all of that. But Anthony is correct. All of those fees can be written off.
Yeah, written off. And then so you have a net that's of profit that's left. If you're single, right, you're able to have tax-free income of $250,000. So if you're making $250,000 profit after your write-offs on this property, you pay no taxes on that, correct?
No, it's not quite that simple. The $250,000 that I think you're referring to is probably the minimum income limit for the 3.8% Medicare tax. There's actually, is there any way I could share my screen? It says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Yes,
if I can
one second.
Yeah, if I can share my screen, I can put something up that'll make it a little bit easier to explain that. So, all right.
Yep.
So this is actually from a webinar that I do on reducing capital gains tax. Okay, so let's look at somebody married filing jointly, okay? So we're looking right here, married filing jointly. Anthony, before you talked about single filers. For a single filer, roughly the capital, I'm sorry, let me back up. There's 3 long-term capital gains tax rate, 0, 15, and 20%. If you're a single filer, which Anthony talked about earlier, roughly the first $40,000 of capital gain that you take in a year will be taxed at 0%. And then from 40,000 to about 435,000, that amount of capital gain will be taxed at 15%. And over 435,000, you're going to be taxed at 20%. The amounts that you were talking about earlier, Anthony, I think we're talking, I think probably you were referring to this. There's another tax that could be levied on you if you're a higher income earner. So if you're
No, I'm talking about the tax, about any profit you make from selling a home. If you're single, it's $250,000 that you can make as a profit at paying 0 tax. If you're married, it's $500,000 that you have. So what you're talking about is above and beyond that.
Right. I'm sorry. You're correct. For each person, if you're selling a residence, you can exempt $250,000 of capital gain from your taxes. So that's what you're talking about. I'm sorry. Yes. We were talking about different things there, Anthony.
Sorry, I wasn't clear. I wasn't clear.
Yeah. And that's per person. And again, this is for your residence only. If it's for a rental property, if it's for a commercial property, then that doesn't hold. But for your residence, $250,000 exemption for each person. So if you have a married couple, that could be $500,000 of capital gain that you don't have to pay any taxes on. So that's what Anthony was referring to. So that's great. And then if you're a single filer, then yeah, $250,000 of capital gain you can exempt from taxes. So if you have $1 million capital gain and you're a single filer and you sell your residence, then $250,000 of that gain will be exempted. So you'll only pay capital gains on $750,000. That's what you're talking about, right, Anthony?
Great. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's available to everyone. You don't need an expert to do that. You don't need anyone to come in and help you with other strategies. That is available to every single taxpayer, and your CPA can help you do that. It's really pretty straightforward. If I've answered the question that you wanted me to answer, Anthony, I can either go over one strategy real quick, or
let's go over another strategy. Absolutely.
Okay, so this will be really quick. I just want to go over one strategy with you that you can use to reduce or eliminate capital gains tax. I have other strategies, but the reason I talk about this one is that it's really simple. It's really easy to understand. This is called a structured installment sale. It's a type of an installment sale, and the installment sale is allowed by the Internal Revenue Tax Code. Let's say someone is selling $1 million piece of property, okay? Let's say it's not a residence and we don't have the $250,000 exemption that we talked about earlier. If it's $1 million transaction, the buyer will typically bring that $1 million in a lump sum at closing, and the seller will get the proceeds of that $1 million transaction in a lump sum. From a capital gains taxation viewpoint, it's not optimal for the seller to take a big sum because that's going to push them up into the 20% capital gains tax bracket. If we want to lower the capital gains tax rate, we can do an installment sale. And an installment sale just means the buyer makes multiple payments. Instead of making one payment, the buyer will make multiple payments. If the buyer makes 10 annual payments of $100,000, the seller will only be taxed on $100,000 each year, not on a lump sum of $1 million, so we can lower the capital gains tax rate. But the reality of the situation is that most sellers don't want to do an installment sale because in our example, they have to wait 10 years to get paid. So most sellers don't want to do an installment sale for that reason. With a structured installment sale, you get the beneficial capital gains taxation treatment I just described, but the seller doesn't have to worry about getting paid. Let me explain it to you. The buyer brings $1 million to closing. They give $1 million to the escrow company. The buyer now has title to the property. They're out of the picture. We don't need to worry about the buyer anymore. The escrow company, let's assume that closing costs are $100,000. 1 million minus 100,000 is $900,000. Typically, the seller will take that in a lump sum, but as we discussed, that will open them up to the highest capital gains tax bracket. So here's a workaround, and this will not invite an IRS audit. The seller takes a promissory note for the $900,000. Let's assume in our example, they're going to get paid out over 10 years. $900,000 divided by 10 years means that they'll get paid $90,000 a year. Okay, so we'll go to the escrow company. We'll have them send the $900,000 to a third-party assignment company. I will introduce them to you. They are a reputable counterparty. They'll keep the money for 1 day, and the next day, the money will be sent either to a trust company or to a life insurance company. Where it goes depends on how we invest the money. We want to invest this money in a very secure way. So we either invest it in US government treasuries, which are guaranteed by the US government, or we invest the $900,000 in an annuity guaranteed by the insurance company. Either way, for the seller, they don't have to worry about, am I going to get paid? We've received the money and it's sitting in a very safe investment right here. And from a taxation viewpoint, the seller is going to get taxed on $90,000 a year, not on a lump sum of $900,000. And because they're taking a lower amount, we can reduce the capital gains tax rate that they will pay. Let me stop right now because I know I gave you a lot of information there. Are there any questions, or did that make sense? Or should I go ahead and move on to the next couple of points?
Yeah, and remember, we're going to be bringing Isaac back next month to do a full seminar on many strategies. So if you want to just kind of wrap this part up, or
Got it.
if something else
Sure.
you want to do.
Yeah, so that's it. Let me just leave you with that. This is one simple strategy to reduce capital gains tax. I have other strategies, and if I'm brought back, as Anthony said, these are some of the other strategies that I will cover, and they are all different ways that we can attack capital gains tax. Thank you, Anthony. I'll go ahead and stop right there. Perfect.
So this is a strategy that I just learned about recently, and I thought it was really, really important to share with everybody. Thank you so much, Isaac, for being here. There's still 5 other strategies, right, to help reduce capital gains. So
yeah, there's other stuff.
Yeah, we're going to bring Isaac back, and he's going to do a full seminar just on these strategies. So if you're interested in learning more of that, please make sure that you check out our website. All of our events are always updated there. And by the way, our next seminar that we have is all about investing in real estate. It's called Investing 101. We do it once a year, and it'll teach you all the basic strategies of how to start investing in properties that will bring you income. So even if it's buying a studio condo that you rent out or a duplex, it's all about buying a property as an income source for you and how to get started in doing that. How to look at cap rates and what's a GRM, and comparing expenses to the purchase price and so on. All of that will be coming up on St. Patrick's Day at 11 a.m. So that's on our website now. So thank you so much, Isaac. We will be bringing you back. And if you want to type in your contact info in the chat, that would be helpful to everyone as well.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, my pleasure. So one last point I just wanted to remind everyone, now that we're in March and this is just starting to take place, but a lot of you have heard of Prop 19. And if you're over 55, good news for you. You're able to now move to your next home and carry your current property tax base to your next home. anywhere in the state of California. And you can do this 3 times throughout your life. So if you're going to be moving and you're over 55, take advantage of it now. Keep your property tax base with you. If you want more information on that, talk to your realtor, talk to us, and we'll be absolutely happy to help you out with that. Just going to put up a last screen here to share. Let's see. And I'm going to put up our contact info. So I wanted you to all to be aware that we do have, there we go. We do have quite a few videos on our YouTube page. So all of our events are on our website at thecollectiverealty.com. If you're looking for an agent or a home or want to register for events, check us out there. Feel free to call or text us anytime. And then please search The Collective Realty on YouTube and subscribe to us there, because that's where you're going to find all kinds of wealth building tools. Again, our mission is to help you protect and build wealth. We're here on your side to help you through that process. Please consider us for any referrals or anybody you know who's looking to build wealth through real estate. We're here to guide you and be that teacher. So if anyone has any questions at this point, will be a great time to ask them. And we'll review that with you. Otherwise, wish everybody a wonderful and safe rest of their week. Have a great weekend. And we look forward to seeing you on the next time. So I'm going to bring this screen down. And if anyone has questions, feel free to hang out with us for a little bit.